You know that moment when your entire world shifts and you don't even realize it's happening? That's exactly what happened to me on a Tuesday afternoon in October. And I swear, if someone had told me that a 6-year-old's kick would unravel my entire relationship with my family, I would have laughed in their face. My name is Susan, and I'm 70 years old. I've been a grandmother to Logan for 6 beautiful, precious years, and that little boy has been the absolute light of my life since the day he was born. After my husband passed away 8 years ago, Logan became my reason to wake up every morning. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I watch Logan while my son David is at work and his wife Amber runs her errand. It's been our routine for years now, and honestly, it's been the highlight of my week. Logan and I have our special tradition. We bake cookies together. We read stories in the big armchair by the window, and sometimes we just sit together watching cartoons. But this particular Tuesday felt different from the moment Logan walked through my front door. Usually, he runs straight into my arms with the biggest smile, shouting, "Grandma Susan!" But that day, he barely looked at me. His little face was scrunched up in anger, his bottom lip jutting out in a pout. "Hey there, my sweet boy," I said, kneeling down to his level. "What's wrong? You look upset." He crossed his tiny arms over his chest and turned away from me. "I don't want to be here," he mumbled. For nearly an hour, Logan sat on my couch with his arms crossed, his face set in the most stubborn expression I'd ever seen. Every attempt I made to engage with him was met with silence or grumpy responses. My heart started to ache, watching this little boy I loved so much seeming so unhappy. Finally, I sat down next to him. "Logan, sweetie, can you tell Grandma what's bothering you?" That's when something in his expression shifted. The sadness was suddenly replaced by genuine anger. Not the kind from not getting a toy, but real, adult-like fury that looked completely wrong on such a young face. "I hate coming here," he said, his voice louder now. "I hate it here and I hate you." The words hit me like a physical blow. Logan had never, ever spoken to me that way. "Logan," I said softly, "that's not a nice thing to say to Grandma. We don't use words like hate to hurt people we love." "But I do hate you," he screamed, jumping up from the couch. Before I could even process what was happening, Logan drew back his little leg and kicked me as hard as he could, right in the shin. The physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional shock. Logan seemed just as shocked as I was by what he'd done. For a split second, his angry mask slipped, and I saw uncertainty, maybe even fear. But then the anger came rushing back, and he shouted, "Good, I hope it hurt." That's when I knew I had to act, not out of anger. I wasn't angry. I was heartbroken and confused, but not angry. I acted out of love and responsibility. "Logan Michael," I said, using his full name. My voice was firm but not loud. "We do not kick people, ever. That was wrong, and you know it was wrong." I gently took his hand and led him to my kitchen table, pulling out a chair. "You're going to sit right here for 6 minutes. 1 minute for each year you've been alive, and you're going to think about what you just did and why it was wrong." Logan's eyes filled with tears of frustration. "I won't say sorry," he screamed. "And you can't make me." "We'll see about that," I said quietly, setting the kitchen timer. Those 6 minutes felt like the longest of my life. When the timer went off, Logan was still defiant. "Are you ready to apologize now, Logan?" He looked at me with eyes that seemed so much older than 6 years. "No," he said simply. "Then you'll sit for another 6 minutes." This pattern continued for nearly an hour. Finally, Logan's resolve seemed to crack. The tears that came were different, softer, more genuine. "I'm sorry, Grandma," he whispered. "Thank you for apologizing, sweetheart. Can you tell me why you're sorry?" Because I kicked you, and that was mean." For just a moment, Logan seemed like himself again. He climbed down from the chair and wrapped his little arms around my waist. "I love you too, Grandma," he mumbled into my sweater. We spent the rest of the afternoon quietly. When David came to pick him up that evening, Logan ran to him with normal enthusiasm, asking if they could stop for ice cream. To anyone watching, it would have seemed like a perfectly normal day. I didn't mention the incident to David. I felt embarrassed, like somehow I must have done something wrong to provoke such a reaction from Logan. That night, as I lay in bed replaying the day's events, I had no idea that the real storm was just beginning. I had no idea that Logan's kick hadn't been the problem. It had been the trap. The doorbell rang at exactly 9:03 a.m. the next morning. I was washing my breakfast dishes when that sharp, aggressive sound cut through the quiet of my morning routine. I dried my hands and made my way to the front door, assuming it was probably my neighbor or the mailman. I was completely unprepared for what I found. Amber stood on my front porch, and I had never seen her look like this before. Her usually perfect blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her cheeks were flushed bright red from anger. Her hands hands were clenched into fists at her sides, and her green eyes blazed something that looked disturbingly close to hatred. "Amber," I said, genuinely confused. "What are you doing here? Is everything okay? Don't you dare pretend you care about Logan's well-being," she snarled. "Not after what you did to him yesterday." My mind raced. I'm not sure what you mean. Logan and I had a bit of a rough patch yesterday, but we worked through it." Amber let out a laugh that held no humor whatsoever. "A rough patch? Is that what you call emotionally abusing a 6-year-old child?" The words hit me like a slap. "Emotionally abusing? Amber, I would never. I love Logan more than anything in this world." "You made my son sit in a chair for over an hour," she screamed. "You made him cry until he couldn't breathe. You terrorized him with your old-fashioned, backwards discipline methods." I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. "Amber, please, I think there might be some misunderstanding. Logan kicked me yesterday, hard enough to leave a bruise. All I did was give him a timeout and ask him to apologize. You're not his parent, Susan. You're not even a good grandmother. You're a bitter old woman who takes out her frustration on a little boy who can't defend himself." Each word was carefully chosen to cause maximum damage. "Logan was fine when he left here. We hugged goodbye, and he was excited about seeing me again. He was putting on an act because he was scared of you," Amber shot back. "You've terrified a 6-year-old child into pretending to love you. He cried himself to sleep last night. He had nightmares about you." The image she painted felt like a physical blow. Logan crying himself to sleep because of me? It couldn't be true. "I don't believe that," I said quietly. "There's no miscommunication," she interrupted. "There's just an old woman who doesn't understand that her outdated, harmful parenting methods have no place in the modern world." "Where is David?" I asked suddenly. "Does he know you're here?" Something flickered across Amber's face. Uncertainty, maybe guilt, but then her angry mask slipped back into place. "David is at work, trying to support his family, instead of dealing with the drama his mother creates. But don't worry, he'll hear all about this when he gets home." "That's not what happened," I said desperately. "Amber, please, if you would just listen." "I'm done listening," she cut me off. "I'm done pretending that your involvement in Logan's life is healthy or welcome." She turned to leave, then paused and looked back at me with cold certainty. "Logan won't be coming here anymore, Susan. Not until you can learn to treat him with the respect and kindness he deserves. And frankly, I'm not sure that day will ever come. You can't keep him away from me," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm his grandmother. I love him. What you call love looks an awful lot like control to the rest of us. Logan doesn't need that kind of love in his life." And then she was gone, leaving me standing in my doorway, feeling like my entire world had just collapsed. I watched her drive away, my mind reeling. I kept waiting for David to call and tell me there had been some terrible misunderstanding, but the phone didn't ring. David finally returned one of my calls, but the conversation was brief and uncomfortable. "Mom, Amber feels very strongly about this. She thinks maybe you and Logan need a break from each other." "A better way forward from what?" I asked desperately. "David, you know me. You know I would never hurt Logan. I know you love him, Mom, but maybe your ways of showing love are different from what Logan needs right now." I could hear the doubt in his voice. Amber had gotten to him first, and now David was questioning everything he thought he knew about his own mother. The call ended with David promising to work on Amber, but days turned into weeks and no compromise materialized. For 3 weeks I lived in limbo, waking up hoping my phone would ring with news that everything had been sorted out. Every evening I went to bed disappointed and confused. I found myself driving past Logan's school, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. I stood in grocery store aisles, staring at cereals Logan loved, wondering if I'd ever get to spoil him again. That night I went to bed thinking I was just a grandmother who had handled a difficult situation with patience and love. I had no idea I was about to become the enemy. 3 weeks passed before I finally understood the truth, and when it came, it arrived in the most unexpected way possible. I was at the public library one Thursday afternoon, trying to distract myself with a novel I couldn't concentrate on, when I heard a familiar voice from the children's section. Logan's voice, bright and excited. My heart started racing. I hadn't seen him in 3 weeks. I moved quietly toward the sound of his chatter. There he was, sitting cross-legged on the carpet, holding a book about dinosaurs while talking to a librarian. He looked exactly the same. Same blonde hair, same bright blue eyes, same infectious smile. He looked completely happy. I watched him for several minutes, aching with how much I'd missed him. And then I heard him say something that stopped my heart. "My grandma Susan used to read me books like this," he was telling the woman. "But my mom says I can't see her anymore because she was mean to me. But I don't really remember her being mean. I just remember her making cookies and letting me stay up late to watch cartoon." The woman made some sympathetic sound, and Logan continued, his voice matter-of-fact. "Mom says Grandma Susan made me sit in a chair for hours and hours until I cried. But I don't remember crying that much. I was just mad because Mom told me to be mean to Grandma Susan, and I didn't want to. But she said if I wasn't mean, we couldn't go to Disney World this Christmas." The world tilted sideways. I gripped the bookshelf to keep from falling. "Mom practiced with me before I went to Grandma's house," Logan continued innocently. "She taught me what to say and how to act mad and how to kick. She said Grandma Susan was trying to steal me away from her and Daddy, and that if I helped her prove that Grandma was bad, then Grandma wouldn't be allowed to see me anymore." Everything clicked into place with horrible clarity. Logan's strange behavior that day, his uncharacteristic anger, the way he'd seemed surprised by his own actions, Amber's immediate appearance the next morning, armed with accusations. It had all been planned. Every bit of it. Amber had coached my 6-year-old grandson to betray me, had used his natural love and obedience toward his mother to turn him into a weapon against me. Then she'd used my reasonable response as evidence that I was unfit to be in Logan's life. I left the library that day with the truth burning in my chest, knowing that the truth alone wasn't enough to save my relationship with Logan. I was trapped in a web so perfectly constructed that struggling only made it tighter. That night, David called. "Mom, please. Amber is pregnant. We just found out. Bringing up this situation with Logan is just making everything harder." Pregnant. Another child who would grow up learning that Grandma Susan was the enemy. "I love David," I said quietly, "and I love Logan more than my own life. I hope someday you'll understand what really happened." After I hung up, I sat in my living room looking at photographs of Logan that covered my mantel. 6 years of love and memories destroyed by one woman's need for complete control. I thought about fighting, about demanding grandparents' rights, but every scenario ended the same way, with Logan caught in the middle, confused and hurt. So I made a decision that night. I would let him go. I would step back and trust that somewhere deep inside, Logan would remember the grandmother who loved him unconditionally. I would hope that someday, when he was older, he might come looking for the truth. It's been 2 years now since that day in the library. David calls occasionally, careful conversations about work and the weather. Logan is 8 now, and I sometimes see them at the grocery store. He doesn't look in my direction when we pass, though I'm never sure if it's because he doesn't see me or because he's been taught not to acknowledge me. But last week, on a sunny Tuesday morning, my doorbell rang. When I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. Logan stood on my front porch, but not the 6-year-old who had been taken from me. This was an 8-year-old Logan, taller and leaner, with his blue eyes serious in a way that made him look far older than his years. He was holding a piece of paper, folded carefully. "Hi, Grandma Susan," he said quietly. "Can I talk to you?" "Logan," I whispered. Where are your parents?" "Mom's at her doctor appointment and Dad's at work. I rode my bike here." I remembered the way. He'd ridden his bike across town to see me. This child who had been taught that I was dangerous had gotten on his bicycle because he needed to talk to his grandmother. "Come in, sweetheart," I said. Logan walked into my living room and stopped in front of the mantel, staring at all the photographs of himself. "I found something," he said, unfolding the paper. "In Mom's desk." He handed me the paper, and I recognized it immediately. It was written in Amber's handwriting, titled, "Logan, Grandma Susan Visit, Tuesday Plan." Below was a detailed outline of exactly how Logan should behave during his visit, what to say to seem upset, how to escalate if I tried to calm him down, instructions about kicking me, with reminders to make it look spontaneous at the bottom in red ink. "Remember, if this works, you won't have to see Grandma Susan anymore, and we can be a real family." I don't remember following this list, Logan said quietly, sitting on the couch, but I remember Mom practicing with me, telling me what to do. I remember feeling confused because you'd never been mean to me before. "Oh, Logan," I said, settling into my armchair. "You were just a little boy trying to make your mother happy. None of this was your fault." "Why did Mom do this?" he asked, his voice small and confused. "Sometimes adults make mistakes when they're scared," I said carefully. "I think your mom was scared that if you loved me too much, you might not love her enough." off. She didn't understand that love isn't like a pie where giving someone a slice means there's less for everyone else. Will you forgive me? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I knelt down in front of the couch, taking his small hands in mine. Logan Michael, there's nothing to forgive. I love you exactly the same as I always have. That's what grandmas do. We love you no matter what. He launched himself into my arms then and held me tight. I missed you so much, Grandma Susan. I missed you too, my sweet boy. Every single day. When David arrived that evening after Logan told his parents about his visit, I showed him Amber's list. I watched his face as he read it, watched the confusion turn to understanding, turn to grief. She made him. David started, then stopped. She coached him to betray me, I said gently, and then used my reaction to justify cutting me out of his life completely. David wept for his son, who had been used as a weapon, for his mother, who had been wrongly accused, for himself, who had been manipulated into doubting his own perceptions. What do I do now? He asked. I don't know, I answered honestly. But Logan is growing up to be a remarkable young man. He found the truth himself, David. That tells me that love really does win in the end. Today, Logan is 10 years old. He visits me every other Saturday, often bringing his little sister, Emma. We bake cookies and read stories and work in the garden together, creating new memories while honoring the old ones. Amber and I maintain a careful peace. Not friendship, but not warfare either. It's not perfect, but it's workable. And it allows Logan and Emma to know their grandmother. Sometimes Logan asks me about those 2 years we lost. I tell him the truth, that it was the hardest thing I'd ever experienced, but that it taught me something important about the difference between love and control. Love means wanting what's best for someone even when it's hard for you, I explained recently, as we planted seeds in the garden. Sometimes what's best means stepping back and trusting that love will find a way to survive. I am 72 years old now. I have learned that love, real unconditional love, has a way of calling people home, even when they've forgotten the way. This is my story, and in the end it brought me back to what matters most. The sound of children's laughter in my garden, the weight of small hands in mine, and the knowledge that love, when it's real and true and patient, can survive anything. Love endures, and sometimes that's enough.